Welcome to Harmonium LA, the podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Heedy Gandolfi, emotional wellness expert, founder of Harmonium LA, and published author. The world needs healing now more than ever. My goal is to bring you inspiring conversations, tips, and techniques that will help you build a sustainable healing toolkit. The Harmonium LA podcast is the only resource you will need to slow down, stop searching, and start healing. Welcome back to another episode of Stop Searching and Start Healing. So today's guest is somebody that I really wanted to share with you as a community because she has been instrumental in my healing over the past 12 months. We only met literally just after COVID first hit, but we have worked together during the pandemic because there have been a lot of challenges that cropped up for me, as with everybody. And this woman has been integral to me moving through some real challenges that I didn't expect, that completely came out of the blue, and really challenged me on an emotional level. So let me give you a bit of a bio, as always, and then we'll introduce her to the show. An alternative health practitioner based in Los Angeles, Heather McCall comes from an array of teachings, including energy work, kinesiology, muscle testing, dowsing, master Reiki, and more. These different modality experiences and trainings have led her to a healing approach that is both flexible and collaborative. Heather works with animals, people, and spaces, offering individual sessions and working across the US and Europe, offering teaching, healing technique workshops. So without further ado, let me introduce Heather to the show. So Heather, thank you so much for joining us. I am thrilled to have you on the show today.
My pleasure.
Albeit through a few little technical issues, but we got there in the end.
It's all right. It's an initiation.
Absolutely, always. So I was just saying in the intro, all of the different modalities that you bring into your practice, you really do have such an expansive approach to your healing and the work that you do. And
Thanks.
So I really, my goal, as you know, with this show is to bring people to the forefront, for people that have these amazing skill sets and these techniques and modalities that they work with, because, we've worked together now for almost a year. But I feel that you just are so needed and so necessary. The work that you do now more than ever is so required by people. And so I want to be able to share you and your talents so people can find you and can really benefit, as I have done so dramatically over the last 12 months. So why don't you just kind of tell us a bit about your background and your story to getting you into where you are now with the work that you're doing.
Okay. All right. Well, just to kind of give an overview, what I do is I clear and I balance energies with different modalities, and I do a lot of home clearing, space clearing. I work with people's energy, and I also do a lot of animals. And I think that, I always knew that I was a sensitive, and I think I always knew I was empathic. So those two things can be a little bit difficult to handle as a child, and it's difficult to kind of differentiate between one and the other. But I knew my family would travel around Europe and take us to different places. And I knew that going to different countries and feeling the energies of different spaces could be quite alarming to me as a kid. So that much I knew. And then I had like a series of like depression, very dark shadow stuff in my early 20s, which led me to kind of work with Donna Eden's technique. She's an energy worker. And I started to learn about meridians. And then fast forward, I had my brother died when he was 29. And that really took off my healing work. So I got initiated with my Reiki level 1 soon after that. And that was just a very, very profound experience and unexpected. It was, I was in an acupuncturist's office, and he just happened to tag it on at the end of the session. He was actually helping me give up smoking. So, so that was interesting. Okay, here we go. We're continuing on the technical issues here.
It's all good.
Anyway, so then I became a Reiki master, and that was kind of like a cornerstone for me. So I went on to explore different healing techniques, and ended up working on animals. That's really my entry point, which I think I told you the other day.
I loved what you said, actually, wasn't it? You said you started with humans. What was it? Tell us that
I
story.
started with animals. The animals led me to the houses, and the houses led me to the people. So that's because I did healing work for a while, but then I was really reluctant to be known as a healer. Why do you think that was? I just wasn't ready for it. I grew up in England. We just thought it was all bollocks, you know. I just wasn't ready for it. I had a family. My family is very artistic. They're very intellectual. You know, it was too painful for me. So I kind of avoided it. I really tried to avoid it. And then I told you I got various different jobs trying to convince myself, oh, I'm going to be this and this instead. But, own agenda, right? So I was working in an art gallery, and the owner of the art gallery said, can you, after work today, can you come over and help heal my cat? And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about. She somehow, I don't know how she knew, but she knew. She said, I know you do healing work. And I was like, well, she said, come on over. So I went over reluctantly. This poor cat, Riley, had been hit by a car and was blind and deaf. And she said, I'm just going to leave the two of you alone. And I was like, no, it's okay. It's really okay. She said, no, I'm going to do this. So I spent an hour with Riley. And by the end of it, Riley had just cemented what I knew I had to do. So that was a monumental hour of work for me. I could hear him. He was very, very clear. And so I left and I started volunteering on any animal I could find. If you had a dog, I'd practically stop you on the street, And I ended up getting a volunteer job at a farm for a month, overseeing the farm on my own.
And did you have farming experience?
No, God, no. I didn't know what I was doing. But what it gave me was massive amount of animal communication. And, by the end of it, it was in Malibu, and I remember going to the supermarket thinking, all the humans were just so incredibly insane. And then I go home, animals were just like, what adventure did you have in the supermarket? I was like, they're all crazy,
And it's like that movie. What's that movie? Is it Babe, about the pig? And they're all talking to each other.
It's like real life version of that. But by the end of it, the last day on the farm, I got my first paid job with animals. So that's kind of how it all started for me.
And that's amazing. So, but even back in those early days, like being able to feel into it and sense into it, but not knowing what to make of it. And almost, I suppose, in some ways, it kind of not scary or daunting, but when you're so young, and especially like you say, growing up in the UK, I mean, we're so stoic and stiff upper lip, and you've got energy. What? No, you couldn't even begin to express that, and you would never have known. But you had that inkling all the way back then, but it had to take you going through your own darkness and your own moments, coming to that healing space. Then to come back through the animals is, I know, it's really quite something.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. One of the things I was unfortunate but lucky at the same time to have come across a couple of very kind of dangerous shadow healer teachers, right? And that was a big learning curve for me. And so I kind of came at the other side of that and thought, that it felt very negative about this whole healing world experience. But then I found an amazing teacher that basically kind of helped my re-entry into this world, because, there is a lot of, I don't know, I think a lot of people that are entering this, they want to learn a lot from teachers, which I totally understand. But this teacher of mine basically took me aside and said, I don't want you to read anything for a year. I don't want you to go to any teacher for a year. And I found that quite alarming, because at that point I was really ready to kind of move into it. And she's like, you need to find your own way on your own. And so that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I was so easily influenced by people's techniques and what they were teaching. And that's one of the things that I offer, I think, as a healer, is that I'm never going to tell you what's, what you think you want to hear, It
Mm.
has to be a collaboration. Otherwise you're with the wrong teacher. That's what I really think.
I agree with you. And I think, spiritual work, you can't rush it. You
Right.
really can't. And when we're doing the healing work, the work that you do and the work that I do, you can't rush that. There is so much. It's such a vast arena. And you have to, like you say, you have to feel into it. And you're taking on so much when you're working in that space that you have to allow it time to process and figure out what is going
Yes.
to be your best path
You're
forward.
exactly right.
Because you can't heal from a space of doing what other people, it has to come from within you. You have to be so
Right.
in tune with it, right? Because
Right. That's
you're
right.
working a lot with intuition, you're working a lot with that, you're entering somebody's emotional body when you
Right.
do the
That's
work that you're
right.
doing. And that's something which you can't take lightly at all.
And it's very hard to explain, and for me, staying out of the labels was really important.
Mm,
But
yeah.
that doesn't make it an easy thing to explain.
Well, that's it. Because it's when you're working with energy, you can't see it, and you try and talk to people about the work that you do and how it's. So I would like to touch on that, because I came to you as a client. That's how we first met, just probably over a year ago. And I'll share a little bit about this. And I don't want to go into it too much because I don't think this is the right time, but just to give a bit of a perspective on it. I came to you just after COVID because I had been through an experience. I haven't spoken to anybody about this actually before because I haven't been ready to. And it's for certain, definitely a show to be done on its own. But for now, I came to you because I had been in this really dark place emotionally. So I had met a guy online just before, literally about a week before COVID actually hit. And we met online. He was in New York, I was in LA. And so we didn't get a chance to meet. We planned to meet, and then the pandemic took over, and that was it. That put pay to it. And at the time, I knew in my heart of hearts, I knew in my gut that it was something that was off, and I chose not to listen to it. And then because the pandemic took over and everybody was in such a tailspin about what was going on in the world and how we were going to navigate, it just became this kind of distraction. And so we created and built this relationship, which later turned out to be a complete lie. And I was scammed, not only emotionally, but financially. And I was in a space of real deep, well, I want to say shame. I want to say that I felt violated. I felt foolish for not having listened to my intuition, for knowing that it was wrong, that there was something that was off, and not paying attention and heeding my own advice. And just the guilt and all of those blame and those lower frequency emotions. And so when I came to you, it was through a friend of ours, and it was because I just didn't know how to process any of that. Even though I'm a healer and I do healing work, I didn't know how to deal with this specific issue. And I had shut myself off for anybody. I was in such a dark place. And when I came to you, it was the work you did was so different. And it was work that I was kind of familiar, aware, but more so on the periphery. And you talked to me a lot about cord cutting and attachments, and how this guy, his energy had attached to me, to my own, even though we had never met. And I was carrying and was still affected at a very deep level by this experience, by these cords and this attachment. So can you talk to that a bit? Because that's a lot of the work you do. And
Yeah,
I
it
think
is a lot of the work. And I don't even know how that happened to be, really, that was one of my things, except that I'd had my own experiences of people being attached to me. Or so I think, I think we pull in our own what we've been through ourselves, right? So as an energy worker, I'm really able to sense very, very quickly if something foreign is attached to the person that I'm working with. And so for me, that has to do with actually, if I'm looking at the physical body, that can have to do with relationships that person's in. If I'm looking outside the physical realm, that can do with karmic issues, past life issues, entities, even things like that. So ideally, you want to be free of the energies of most of those things. So not all of it, but most of it, right? So, but if you're dealing with a cord, I think many of us have had early trauma. And my experience working with this situation is that if you've had trauma, let's say before the age of 11, you can tend to grow up attaching or being the one that's attached to another person, because those first three chakras, without the energy moving in the right direction, it leads us to insecurities. It leads us to just openings in our energy realm without us even knowing, right? And so you can attach to another person in order to manipulate their energy. I don't mean this in a horrible way, but just from an insecure place. And so, we want to feel our bodies on our own. We don't want anyone else's energy pulling. And one of the classic examples of this is if you've been in a love relationship and the relationship's ended, but you feel like you can't restart, you can't separate out. And it can be very detrimental. So luckily, there's things that can be done to kind of clear that up. Now, a lot of healers believe in cutting cords, and in quite dramatic ways with scissorings, and you kind of pull out the cord and you wrap it and you bring out a sword or a pair of scissors, and it's all very dramatic. I've had that done myself. I don't really enjoy the process of that. And so what I do is I gently pull, and always with a lot of love, you pull the cord. And the key for me is the love aspect, because nobody means to, on a soul level, they don't mean to cause you harm. So
yeah. I mean, to some that might sound quite scary.
Yes.
It's almost like cut cords,
right.
pull cords.
Right.
What does, and to do it lovingly and with ease.
Yes, that's right. So I basically go in, I figure out, because the cords are usually attached to the chakra system. So I figure out which chakra it is. And then, through various different means of visualization, you can feel that you start to kind of feel the cord, and you pull it much like taffy coming out of the energy body. And you just keep pulling and pulling. And as you do that, you'll get a lot of images of what you're pulling, what kind of essence it is. And then you seal it with light, basically. So I don't know, a lot of people feel like the cutting of the cords is very much like a root from a tree, that the root can actually grow back. And so some clients have to, come to me after they've had a cord cutting, because there's been kind of a reattachment. I think, honestly, if you want to reattach, you can, no matter how you do it. So you have to be willing, right? You have to be willing to surrender
and ready, willing and ready, and like you say, to remove it at the root level, so that it doesn't start to come back.
Well, let me ask you, Jessica, how did it affect you having a cord pulling?
It was so emotional. I mean, I was already an emotional wreck when I started with you, but to go through that process, I remember just sobbing. It was the release. And so I guess it's not painful physically, but the emotional release, and not knowing, because you don't know where and how it's attached, and so it's not something that you can see. So, but just this relief. So the emotional release, and then the relief afterwards of just feeling lighter and lighter, and feeling, really delicate, and feeling like I'd just been really worked over. But the relief of that, and just feeling the calm and feeling the light come back in. Definitely.
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
This feeling of, wow, I can actually feel my body,
Yeah.
I can feel my choices. Yeah.
And that's interesting, because I think as well, and maybe you can talk to this, but sometimes, because people say, well, how can somebody's energy attach to my energy, and how can they put this cord into me and have this kind of, not control, but this connection to me, and to be so affecting on such a deep level? But is it true that you could even pick that up just by being in someone's presence, even somebody that you don't even know? So, like if you've been on a plane in the olden days, and we used to be able to travel, or in a restaurant, or in a store, and you come out, and all of a sudden you're just feeling so, I like to say, funky, or you just this different energy which you feel isn't yours, but you've picked it up. Is that something that can also happen as well, and you can end up carrying that around?
For sure, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I teach as much as I can tools for clients to clear themselves, because it's super easy to do. There is no mystery around clearing energy. There really isn't. Intention is so much of it. But there are, like, I have to clear systematically after every client. You know, I use copper hoops. You just experienced my new pyramid from Twisted Sage. I think it's easy. You know, you can do an unhook, which is basically a thumb to the third eye and an unhooking of something that's come in. Tapping is very helpful. If you set a shower, if you run a shower and you ask it to clear your energy system and then you step in, it'll be a totally different shower than the one you had yesterday, you know. So ring some bells. And the main thing is, it seems very difficult for people to remember to clear. That seems to be the big thing.
So that's part of the practice that you have to teach people as part of the practice daily.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I had a teacher that she described going down to the British subway system, and she'd see black from the back of everyone's neck right to the top of the train. So yes, you got to clear. And also just from an entity point of view, I don't think all entities are bad, but we don't want them attached to us, really. So,
and what would an entity be, and why would it attach to somebody?
It's just everything's flying around the place right now. So I think if you've got a vulnerability, or, you know, you're not grounded, or I don't think there even has to be a reason. I have done so much clearing since COVID. It's really crazy. Have you had this experience?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been, and I was going to ask you about that, because the grief work that you do must have been, I mean, it's so timely, the work that you and I both do, but more so now than ever. I mean, how have you adapted, and how have you had to adapt with your clients and your business to the extremes that we've all experienced of COVID?
Well, for me and my work on that level, it's encouraging people to understand that energy is remote. It is not something. That's why we can do remote work. It's not fixed in place. And that was a big learning curve for clients, that they didn't understand that we could adjust the energy system from a distance. It's not a stable thing. You don't just feel energy in somebody's body. You can feel it, you know, as far away as across the world, you know. So that was a major learning curve for people. And so in terms of COVID, it was, you know, it's also, there are a lot of different, you know, I don't know, but personally, I think there was, people moved into camps very quickly about what they believed in. And to me, it's very important to just keep a curiosity about what's happening, and to not attach to, you know, this isn't real. Or in the healing community, I'm going to make some enemies on this call right now, I'm sure. But in the healing community, I don't care, it's fine.
We'll clear you afterwards. It's all good.
Exactly. In the healing community, you know, there's a lot of talk about it not being real, and you know, that the vaccine shouldn't be trusted, and all of those things. And people are very eager to attach to a notion of something, I think, when we're facing a crisis. So that was just it continues to be an interesting wave.
Well, I think it gives them hope, right? It's feeling there's something to hold on to, because we're all spinning, and we all have been spinning for the last 12 months. We just don't know which way it's going to go.
Exactly.
And so we hear one thing and say, yep, that's it. That's where I'm at.
So the practice of being with the unknown is a really great practice, you know.
But that's it. I mean, 99% we don't see. We've really only seen 1% of our reality most of the time, and it's the 99% that we don't see that hurts us and affects us.
Right.
And that's the bit that we have to work on as healers, working with energy, and even, like you say, over Zoom, distance. I mean, all our sessions that you and I have been on Zoom remotely, and they have been unbelievably powerful, because every single one. And what I love about your sessions is that you can have a session and you like to work with your clients so that you can give them these tools for maintenance. So a client can come and have one session with you, and then they may not need to come back because you'll give them the tools and the techniques which they can continue to build into their practice every day at home.
That's right.
And to pull from.
Yes,
And
I've
they
never
are
been
powerful.
Thank you. I never was interested in being a teacher that insisted that you had to come back. I was very clear that had been my experience a few times, and I never really related to that concept that there was only one way or one teacher.
That's it.
That was a big warning sign for me. So.
Well, that's it, because, I love to say, healing is so multifaceted. It isn't a one size fits all. And so you have to be open to trying different techniques and methods and tips and recommendations until you find the one that works for you. And, the whole goal with this show is to help people build this toolkit that they can use no matter where they are on their healing journey, because we're always at a different stage. And so it's not necessarily that what worked yesterday is going to work for the next experience that you come across or the one after that. But speaking to your tips and techniques, I mean, every single tool that you've given me, I've embraced every single one, as sometimes as bizarre as they might be. And I know the kids are like, what is that you're doing? I'm like, don't worry, it's all good. But every single one has worked and served its purpose. And it's been an adventure and a journey, because I see the shift and I see that the bongers, I love the bongers. I mean, these little tools that we use to knock the energy around, which I'd never heard of before. And they're fantastic. And just tips and the breathing and the clearing and the showering, some of them that cost absolutely nothing, but can be done every single day and will really help to ground and just reconnect. Has been amazing. And I think that's what's so crucial with the work that you do. But then I do have to say that I did bring my dog to see you in person last week, because bless him, he was a rescue, and so the trauma, but the powerful, I've never, and again, it's the British in me, just, just going to do what exactly, but it was unbelievable to have that experience, to see you work with him, who was this like quivering wreck of nerves, and for you to tap into what it was that was traumatizing to him, and using these tools and the copper and the crystals and just the clearing techniques, which you then taught me, was just absolutely mind-blowing. I've never experienced anything like it, just to see how he shifted during the session. And then as soon as we came home, he literally ran into the house. I haven't really spoken to you since we did that, but he literally ran into the house like a puppy. And he's 6, 7 years old. It was like he had a new lease of life all over him. And he has not been the same since. And so it's just phenomenal that you have this gift. Because I'm guessing that the way that our homes, so you work with homes and you work with animals and you work with humans, but they all interact, and the energies bleed from one to the other. And
they're all very similar in a way, how you work with them. So animals are, for me, the easiest to work with, because they really have no qualms about telling you where they want you to work and how they want you to work. And it's just a language that you start to pick up. And I really think anyone can do it. And once you figure out their language, you're off and away,
It was fascinating to witness it, and for you to show me, and I'm all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, I get it. I can see that in him.
Yes.
And now it's like him and I have this connection. The kids are like, oh, he's your favorite now. Like, you don't care about us anymore. Like, you've got this connection with the dog that you didn't have before. But from a healing standpoint, it's absolutely essential.
I do feel like I have a lot of clients that come in with their dogs, and they end up having very cathartic experiences, much like you did, because it's very moving, and you start to understand your animal on a level that you hadn't really before, even though the love was obviously there. And it's an energy language, And then you also get to understand that the animal is able to move in a way that is indicating, help me here and help me here. And that's a big shift for owners, for people with animals to understand.
And so, essential too. They say, people that have animals will live longer, healthier lives, because you have that connection with your counterpart, but they will also pick up all of your energy. And I'm guessing vice versa. So whatever experiences you're going through as a human, they're picking up on, and that affects them. And so if you're able to clear them, it's kind of like this symbiotic relationship where you work with each other.
Definitely. Oh, absolutely. Like your agreement will change with your animal. once you start clearing them, because the animals never get cleared of your energy. And they need it. So, you know, if you start with some tools of, you know, like the scissoring technique, or they'll thank you forever. Like it's just that the agreement deepens between the two of you, you know, to take care of each other in a deeper way.
Just beautiful. I mean, honestly, and then the home aspect, you know, because, you know, how does that work too?
Oh, that is just so fun. It's like moving into the body of somebody. So that's how I describe it. So you walk into a space and you're literally faced with almost like different energy systems, and houses speak, you know, walls speak. So there's a ton of information. I mean, there's a ton of testing that we do. And Nicole, who you worked with for a long time, didn't you? I think.
Yeah. Good couple of years.
Yeah. She taught me a lot about what to test for and what kind of communication spaces need. And she never actually went to the houses to clear. She did all her clearing remotely. Yeah. So, and that's basically what I do too, unless there's a specific situation where the house isn't clearing quite as well. And then I might make an in-person visit, but.
But it's very true, because again, it's, you walk into a house, you know, if you're looking to buy a home or, you know, rent or whatever, and you will immediately get a feel, oh, I feel this feels great, or it doesn't. And you will pick up, and there is, you know, science to say that moving down, you know, eventually we're going to get to a space where people will be able to, they will see from a room, you know, exactly what happened if a murder took place, or if something untoward happened. They'll be able to tell you exactly, because it's ingrained within the walls and the energy of that home and that vibration.
Yes, that's right. And
so do you have a lot of
not only the house itself, but you have to check the street, you have to check the houses next door, you have to check you know, energy of you know, are there vortexes nearby? So, you know, the house may not be the center of it. It may be impacted by, you know, something else on the street.
Something else. So it could be the ground it's on, or like say any of the surrounding buildings and the environment surrounding it. So you have a lot of clients that come to you if they're looking to move home, or if they're having an issue in a home that they're already at, or if there's something that's just there's blocks or there's situations.
I get a whole array of situations. I get a lot of divorce houses. That's what I call them. I get a lot of people who've died in houses. I get a lot of poltergeist activity. So the gamut is pretty broad there. But also I get house blessings. Those are always lovely to do. And, you know, something as simple as a child not being able to sleep in his bedroom. You know, there was one case where I went to the child's bedroom, and out the window I saw like this ghost of this man, and he was digging up the garden and putting things in the garden, and he had some confusion about the fact that entry into the bedroom used to be his way back into the house, the back door of the house. And the new owners had turned it into their children's bedroom. So he kept wanting to come through the window, basically, which used to be the door. And so that is really not so much about getting rid of the ghost, but redirecting him or explaining what had happened. But I did say to the owners, I think you've got a lot in the earth there, because I think he was somebody that buried a lot of metal. And indeed,
how did they take that?
Well, they checked it, and they found so many different pots and pans and things like that.
Amazing. I mean, you just don't think about the little nuances like that it could be, you know, the child's not sleeping, and you just would never think to look outside of that as a bigger picture, as to bringing somebody in to clear the energy of the home, or even just that surrounding area. You wouldn't do it. But it just makes perfect sense, and just such an amazing tool. I mean, that's like you're the one-stop shop, right, for all things clearing. So whatever people are going through, you have that ability through this huge array of techniques and just intuitions and feelings and sensitivities that you can really help to clear and process and guide and redirect where necessary these energies to really help people live in that space of calm.
Yes, that's
and
right.
clarity.
And it doesn't have to take much,
No, it doesn't. And
No.
either for sure one session, and
Yeah.
pretty much, unless there's something a lot more untoward going on. But then I think you would know that fairly quickly when you start working with people.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah.
It's just fascinating, but so necessary, because people can pull from it.
That's right.
And utilize it and keep using those tools on a daily basis moving
That's
forward.
it.
So you're doing a lot of teaching. So online, you're doing teachings and trainings and courses. You're doing majority of your clients online now as well. I know you said that.
Yes, except for animals and the occasional house that I'll have to turn up at. But yes, everything's online. And but I will be getting back to in-person workshops, because I think there's something lovely about the learning experience in groups. But
Definitely.
So yeah, I teach Reiki workshops and energy workshops for beginners and intermediates. And
can anybody learn? Or do you think you have to have a natural gift and a natural inbuilt system?
Anybody learn. Anyone can learn. I mean, some people are going to find it easier than others. But I think, if you don't feel that you can feel energy, it would be, a really fun experience for you to come and see that you can. Anyone can.
And fun is, you are great with your sessions, because of course they're very emotional and they're very, challenging sometimes, but you do bring that element of fun and you do make it light, which I think is also important when you're healing as well. You are in that dark space. You want to be able to feel elevated and uplifted at the same time. And so you always do. I know, during our sessions, yes, it's the tears and the emotion, and I think I probably only had 3 sessions with you in total, probably in the last 12 months.
Wow. It feels
and yet
like
the shift
forever. It really
does. It really does. But the shift just in those 3 sessions was phenomenal and really life-changing.
Oh, good.
And just so
well, I like it to
reflective.
Be light breezy, because it doesn't have to be dark and heavy hitting. And it just doesn't. There's no need for that. It really doesn't. It's just
that's what's so magical, because that's energy, and everything is energy, and we have to look to make things fun and light, because that's where the healing can really truly begin, when you get into that high vibrational state. Life is hard enough, and I say that all the time. Healing should not be difficult. It should be easy.
That's
and
right.
fun. It's painful to go through it, but then it has to at the same time be that fun, easy breezy. So what would be your top takeaway for everybody that's listening that would really help support them, during what has been and probably will continue to be for a little while, these challenging times? Do you have a tip or takeaway that they can use at home?
Well, let's see. What do I want to share about that? I think this notion that you can, especially during this time, anxiety has been very, very intense with people. I think the reaching out, just reach out and try and get some help with that if you need it. And whether it's just a phone call or put your hand on your heart and simply say, how does that heart feel today? Where are you? Are you feeling like you're in the front of the chest? Are you feeling like you're hiding in the back? You ideally want the energy heart to be just floating in the middle of the chest of the body. Take a nice breath and just simply say, I've got you. I've got you. I've got you. And then follow it with your name, and ask your heart what it needs. And then if the stomach is really speaking to you, do the same with the stomach. Just check in more often. That's a good place to start.
That's beautiful. Just going within, which we all come back to. It's about going within and taking that time, even if it's just 5 minutes to connect with self.
Yeah, that's right.
But to ask your heart. I love that.
Ask your heart always. Yes.
What do you need?
Always. What do you need? How are you feeling, and what do you need?
Beautiful. Heather, I am so grateful for you
Oh,
taking
it's so
time
fun.
and just come share, because
Jessica,
you are
yes.
amazing. And so anybody that's needing personal clearing, home clearing, animal clearing, anything, all
That's
of the
it.
above,
Reach out.
Heather is your girl for sure. And yeah, we'll put all of your info, your contact details, everything into the show notes on the website, and everybody can find you and access to you. And yeah,
All
we
right.
need you. So
Lovely.
wonderful.
Oh, so
Heather,
fun.
thank you so much.
All
So
right,
grateful. Take
Jessica.
care. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I truly hope that you enjoyed the show, and there is at least one thing that you can take away from today's episode that will help you build that sustainable healing toolkit. It would mean the absolute world to me if you would subscribe to the show, give it a 5-star review, and share this or any of the other episodes with somebody that you feel could really benefit by listening. I look forward to seeing you next time.